Hello, welcome to everyone. I hope you can hear me and see me well. And thank you for joining us this morning for the second session of our series of webinars held for QualitEE Project final event. I am Eline Blanchard from EFIES. We are the European partners of the QualitEE Project, and I'm really happy to have you here today. So yesterday, we had a very interesting and lively session about energy efficiency services markets all across Europe and the market surveys and studies conducted under the QualitEE Project. Today, as you can see here on my slide and on the agenda, we are going to present the quality assessment criteria for energy efficiency services developed under the QualitEE Project. So Clemens Leutgeb from EasyBurn Energy Innovation and Engineering, also known as our project lead, will share with you which tools we need to galvanize demand. He will do so by presenting technical and financial quality assessment criteria developed and tested during the 3 years of the project, which started in 2017 and is ending this month. Right after that, Agris Camandos from Ecodoma will present the quality pilot project conducted in 11 European countries. He will share with us the lessons learned from this project with real-life experiences. Finally, we will have a 15-minute Q&A session during which you will be able to ask questions to all our experts from the QualitEE Consortium. They will represent the 11 European countries covered by the project and where our pilot project have taken place. This session will also be moderated by Agris, as you can see here. So as I just said, we will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, but do not hesitate to ask questions all through the session by using the question panel, which you can see here. We will read your questions along the way, and during the Q&A session, Agris, the moderator, will select them and ask them. We might not be able to answer all the questions during this webinar, but we will try to respond afterwards, all the questions we would have not covered. So in any case, please do not hesitate. As anticipated, this session is part of a series of 3 webinars. The first one was yesterday. Don't worry if you missed it. The slide and the recording are available on QualitEE's website. You also have a link in the chat. And our last session, unfortunately, it's our last session, is tomorrow, same hour, same place, not the same link though. And we will discuss how to build trust in energy efficiency services, especially through the quality assurance schemes and business models developed by our partners. You can also find the link in the chat. So do not hesitate to join us tomorrow and to ask a question all along the way today. And now I will leave the floor to Clemens from EasyBurn.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear and see me. I'm really glad that I'm able here to present some of the core outcomes of 3 years' work in an international consortium that has implemented the quality project. I would like to present you today some of the core tools which we have developed together and which we think are useful to give a push to the energy efficiency service markets. On one hand, it's a pity that I can't see you face to face. For me, it's a bit unusual situation to hold such a webinar. But on the other hand, I hope this gave the possibility to people who wouldn't have been able to come to a physical conference. So let's have a look on the energy efficiency service markets with a focus on the building sector and the main stakeholder groups there. We have, of course, the clients, either public or private. Then we have the energy service providers, and we have financial institutions that finance the projects, either on the client side or on the side of the energy service providers. And one core issue is that the interfaces between these stakeholders have to be handled through mutual trust. This sounds quite easy, but we understood from a market research we made in the frame of the QualitEE project. Here, once again, an invitation to look at the presentation or at the session we had yesterday, where the results of this market research have been presented in detail. One of the major outcomes was that simply lacking trust is a major market barrier. And clients, but also providers and facilitators think that trust could be, or mutual trust could be improved, increased through a kind of quality assurance system. And this is a bit the background of the QualitEE project. So we see that clients perceive a certain complexity of energy efficiency services. And this complexity is a barrier to trusting the business model of energy efficiency services. If you don't understand something well, then you will not trust it. Therefore, clients have to be guided through this complexity by standardization of quality-related aspects, meaning we have to explain in a better way to the client what defines quality of energy efficiency services, and this will lead to trust in the provision of these services, and as a further result, then to an increase of investments. So I have talked now about the basis of increasing trust, which is a common understanding and collaboration of the stakeholders I've mentioned before. In order to achieve this common understanding and good collaboration between stakeholders, in the QualitEE project, we have developed a set of quality criteria, technical and financial quality criteria that help to build up this very important mutual trust between stakeholders. And on the top, we have also developed and tested quality assurance schemes that take these quality criteria and verify whether quality is delivered or not. Today, I will focus on the criteria as such, and in tomorrow's session, we will present you an insight on the quality assurance schemes which have been developed in different European countries. So once again, an invitation also to join us tomorrow. So let's have a look at these technical quality criteria which we have developed. Altogether, we have identified 9, let's say, fields, areas that are important when it comes to quality of energy efficiency services. We have also tested these areas and fields in the market research to which I have referred earlier, and it was clearly confirmed that all of these fields are important from the client's perspective as well as from the energy efficiency service provider perspective. In this context, I would like to underline that technical quality criteria are mainly important for the relationship between the client and the provider. And here are these 9 quality criteria. I will just quickly go through them, starting from the top and then clockwise. A first element of quality that is important is the adequate analysis. So someone has to understand where are the energy efficiency potentials in a certain facility and has to analyze this in an adequate way. Then there is quality related to the implementation of the technical measures. Then we have the savings guarantees as one important element. We have the verification of the energy savings. This can be done in a good way or in a bad way. But in any case, someone has to verify whether energy savings really are achieved. Another element is value retention and maintenance. Energy efficiency services are not only about saving energy, but they are simply an intrusion to a certain facility, and the service provider has to take care of all the equipment and facilities he's dealing with. Then the communication between the provider and the client. Another important aspect are comfort requirements, which have to be defined, and the provider has to comply, of course, with these comfort requirements. Then a next level is the involvement of users, meaning users have to be informed, they have to be motivated to collaborate with the provider. And finally, there are several contractual stipulations that define the quality of an energy efficiency service agreement, and which are also important when we talk about technical quality criteria. Of course, we did not stop just with the titles. We detailed each quality criterion with a number of assessment criteria. This is just to give you an example. So usually these are 3 to 5, sometimes a bit more assessment criteria for each quality criterion. And altogether, these 9 quality criteria are detailed by means of 38 assessment criteria along the value chain of the energy efficiency service, meaning covering the whole cycle from project identification over preliminary analysis towards the procurement, installation of measures, and then guaranteed operation. The assessment criteria are then further specified by a detailed description of how the compliance with a specific assessment criterion has to be proven and how the assessment procedure has to be done. And this is then commented by an explanatory note. So also an external neutral stakeholder could apply this assessment to a specific energy efficiency service project. I come to the next tool which we developed and which is based on the technical quality criteria I have explained before, the so-called procurement handbook. The procurement handbook transfers the technical quality criteria to the procurement process It applies them to a certain extent and tells to the client how to use the technical quality criteria in a procurement process, independent from the procedure that is selected by the specific client. Naturally, procurement processes are more formalized and standardized in the public sector. Here we have these 3 procedures that are applied when it comes about the procurement of energy efficiency services: the competitive procedure with negotiation, the competitive dialogue, and in some cases also the single stage procedure. But I would like to underline that also private clients have to procure, even if not formalized and standardized. They have to select the best energy efficiency service provider for their purposes, and therefore this procurement handbook gives valuable guidance to them as well. In this handbook, the criteria are applied at different levels. So we specify whether criteria may be used as technical specifications or I have to say, because sometimes it's an or award criteria. So some of the technical quality criteria are more suitable to be used as technical specifications, whereas others can be used as award criteria in a procurement process. I just show you an example how this is then developed in a large table where you see how you can use the different quality criteria and assessment criteria in a procurement process, meaning in the different phases of the procurement process, and either as award criterion or as technical specification. So my last point, or the last tool I would like to present to you, are the financial quality criteria for EES. Sometimes during the development process, we realized that that there is a certain interlinkage between the technical quality criteria that describe or that define the needs that in the relationship between the client and the provider, and the financial quality criteria that are more related to the needs of the financing institution. Because financing institutions do not need to understand and know all technical details of a project, which are, however, relevant for a client. Financial institutions need to understand mainly how values are generated and secured in an energy efficiency service project. In order, or based on this basic information need, we have then defined a few questions that guide us towards the definition of financial quality criteria. On the one hand, one major question is, are the energy savings that are promised at some point in time, are they reliable? The second point is, what happens in case of failure or bankruptcy, either of the EES provider or the EES client? Then the technical equipment that is implemented somewhere in order to achieve energy savings is important. Mainly the question to which degree it can be used for collateralization. And finally, we also had a look on non-energy benefits and their role or their impact on the bankability of energy efficiency service projects. Altogether, this led us to 5 financial quality criteria. On the one hand, the quality of cash flow prediction, then the incentive structure for cash flow generation. So is there enough incentive at the providers and client side to generate the cash flow coming from the energy savings? Then the exploitation of cash flows, for example, in the case of bankruptcy of one of the stakeholders. And then the value and the exploitation of the assets, once again, in case of bankruptcy of one of the stakeholders. And finally, the non-energy benefits. Once again, all the financial quality criteria have been specified through assessment criteria. I pick out just one example here, the criterion 1, quality of financial flow prediction. This is important because cash flow is the main source for repayment of an investment, and energy savings as cash flow are a bit unstable because they do not have their own market, and they have to be measured and verified. So someone has to calculate energy savings. And therefore, certain risks are associated to this process. And these risks, in order to capture these risks, we have defined assessment criteria that show us whether the quality of cash flow prediction is acceptable in a certain energy efficiency service project. I pass the second example and come already to my summary. QualitEE has defined a set, the QualitEE project has developed a set of quality criteria for different purposes and for different stakeholders and their interrelationship. We have seen that quality is a major element in order to achieve mutual trust, and mutual trust is a precondition for investment decisions. So if we have a look at the client side, the set of quality criteria we have developed helps the clients to specify their needs, to define the requirements in a procurement process, and of course to assess the service quality delivered by a provider over the whole implementation phase. From the provider's perspective, quality criteria help them to define their own services. They may serve as a USP that may differentiate a provider from his competitors. And they may be also used internally to define internal quality standards and to develop internal procedures and rules in order to keep a predefined quality standard through all projects implemented by the provider. Finally, for financial institutions, quality standards help them to differentiate between quality assured and non-quality assured projects, and they facilitate the financial appraisal of energy efficiency service projects. So altogether, I think we have developed very good tools, very useful tools that have been tested in practice. We will hear in the next presentation the results of these tests. how the quality criteria have been applied in real projects. As a final statement, I would just like to invite you once again to visit our QualitEE website and to download the tools and to work with them in your daily practice. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you a lot, Clemens. Thank you for this really good insight into our quality criteria. So now, as Clemens anticipated, we are going to have a presentation from Agris Kamenders. He is going to present the pilot projects conducted in 11 European countries under our under the quality project. During this presentation, look at the Q&A session. Please do not hesitate to ask your questions, and you can ask questions on specific pilot projects, which are very interesting for you, and then we will be happy to have a look at them during the Q&A session. So please, Agris, the floor is yours.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Agris Kamenders, yes, from Ecuador, and actually I'm happy and I'm really have this privilege to present very interesting work on the pilot projects where we test the quality criteria, where we test the procurement handbook and as well the financial criteria in real life projects from the 11 European countries. So, of course, during this one presentation, there will be no possibility to go in much detail in each of the pilot projects. However, I will try to give you the overview, and I will try to give you some main conclusions. And after that, we will have a Q&A session where I really as well invite you to ask the questions for our project partners, which we're dealing and working on daily basis, helping and supporting pilot projects and as well testing the quality criteria. I will talk a little bit about the pilot project itself, what kind of projects we got, and what kind of technologies were used, and what kind of clients and what kind of methodology actually we use to obtain the feedback. And yes, in the very end, and we will have some hopefully some discussion and questions from your side. Please write your questions under the chat box questions, so we will pick up some of the questions and we'll answer on them. Yes, our initial task and our target was to first of all, of course, to test the quality criteria in real projects. Our initial target was that we will test and we will support 24 pilot projects in 11 countries, and of course obtain the feedback from the parties involved in the projects, and in our case we focused on the client side, ESCO side, and facilitator if it was applicable. Of course, we tried to collect the feedback in a qualitative and as well in quantitative manner, meaning that just during the quality project meetings, asking open type questions and discussing, and really through the discussion try to obtain the feedback, and of course as well trying to describe and rate the answers using the questionnaires and monitoring tool. And during the work and testing the quality criteria, of course, we were supporting as well the projects itself, discussing the issues on the quality and trying to help clients or ESCOs address the questions which could come up. The main questions studied basically was about, first of all, about the importance of quality criteria. As you see, from our side, we defined the 9 quality criteria areas with the assessment criteria. And this was quite extensive and defined list, but of course our aim was to actually to ask the clients and ESCO companies and as well facilitators how do they see the importance of those criteria. As well, we were trying to understand we were trying to understand if it's really possible to provide evidence and how easy or how hard is to assess the certain criteria, and actually how can you prove or what kind of documentation you could use to assess the concrete criteria. And of course, we were looking on the time and resources needed for the evaluation. We were asking the questions on the resources required actually for this assessment. And as well, of course, we were looking and trying to look how many actually criteria were used, if there was criteria which was not used, what was the reason, or maybe what which should be added, or maybe something should be removed. So these were the main questions which we try to address during the work with the pilot projects. It was continuous feedback through the project development phase. In altogether, we were working with the pilot projects approximately 2 years, and in projects in different stages. There is projects which were just starting to work on the procurement, and then some in the EPC contracting stage, some of them already in energy efficiency measure implementation stage, and some of the projects in operation and operation stage. Basically, we would develop we presented our results in 3 deliverables. One of them where we start to describe the pilot projects more from the technical point of view. Actually, we use already existing a database, DEEP, which is EFIG database, where we describe the projects, which we hope will as well will contribute to this existing database, and will provide some basic information about the amount of savings, about the amount of investments, about the type of measures and technologies. Then, of course, during the work with the pilot project, several meetings, we called them quality management meetings, were organized where actually the project partners were discussing the quality issues and questions how in real life how to apply the quality criteria. And this was captured in our internal monitoring tool, where we just captured the main points discussed and main questions which came up from the client or ESCO side, and this we call this more qualitative feedback loop, which we try to keep. And in the very end, we use quite detailed questionnaire for the clients, for the ESCO companies, and for the facilitators, if applicable, where we ask to rate actually each of the quality criteria addressing the main questions which we explained already before. And in the very end, as well, the pilot project application reports are prepared, where we try to summarize this feedback collected, starting with the description of the pilot projects itself, as well of the results, how the criteria was used, and and what was the feedback from the clients in ESCO side. If we look on the already the pilot project and type of the projects, so in total we were quite successful, and project partners were quite successful in convincing the stakeholders to cooperate and actually to test quality criteria. In total, we were working with 28 pilot projects, with different type of projects. And as well in different stages of the projects. It could be that at the moment it's already something has been changed, but at least when we concluded our work, the 3 projects were still in procurement stage, where actually our project partners helped the clients and ESCO companies to prepare the procurement. 1 project was in contracting stage, 5 projects where measures were in implementation stage, and 19 projects in operation stage. If we look on the type of the projects, then 9 projects from 28 was on a deep renovation, where buildings were renovating, applying a different kind of measures, really holistic approach, quite intensive investments, and as well energy savings. 4 projects were focusing more on engineering, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and metering, trying to optimize our existing systems or installing new. 7 projects were focusing on efficient lighting, and 8 projects were dealing more on with the energy production and renewables. So different type of technologies, and as well this was quite good that we have different projects and different variety of technologies used. And if we look on the size of the projects as well, we have projects with the total investment size starting from the 4,000 euros up to 8 million euros. So very different. Very different projects as well in terms of size of investments. So what was as well good in trying out the criteria in different type of projects. Yes, so I will try to go quickly through the projects that you have a little bit the feel and have a chance to see actually what kind of clients, what kind of projects we were working with, and afterwards you have a chance to as well already during this session to ask the questions to the project partners which were dealing on daily basis with those very interesting, in my mind, energy efficiency projects, or afterwards you can read the pilot project application reports. So from United Kingdom we have 2 interesting projects in public buildings from 2 municipalities, quite big projects, and with different kind of energy efficiency measures applied. In Czech Republic, we have as well 2 projects in public sector, actually 2 universities. One project is deep renovation of a dormitory building of Czech Technical University, and as well quite big project of retrofit of Academy of Fine Arts in Prague. In Bulgaria, we have 1 project, 1 kindergarten, renovation of kindergarten and schools, so 2 projects as well in public sector, and 1 project in more commercial sector. It's about the efficient refrigeration system in Sofia. From Belgium, we have 2 projects, public buildings from 2 municipalities, as well public clients. Then we have 7 projects which we're focusing on the efficient lighting. There was 5 projects from Germany actually, which were focusing on efficient lighting, and mostly the projects were implementing in office buildings, but as well in factory buildings. Then from Greece, we had as well 2 projects on efficient lighting, one in a shopping center, and one in office building, and one project where was not only lighting, but lighting combined with the zoning and adjusting existing heating and ventilation and cooling system, just adjusting the systems and better managing the existing equipment. From Latvia, we got 1 deep retrofit of residential building in Riga, multi-apartment building, and PV, 1 public client, 1 municipality, which we're dealing with the renewables PV panels. From Austria, 1 residential building where basically ESCO were dealing on with the energy source of the building. They were changing the existing boiler and optimizing the heating system. And 1 warehouse, Triumph International warehouse, where was different type of measures applied, the lighting, boilers, optimization of control. From Slovenia, there is 2 projects, public clients, 1 dormitory and 1 school, basically deep renovation of the buildings. From Slovakia, we got 3 projects, deep retrofit of municipal building, and 1 hospital and dormitory. And from Spain, there was 2 projects in commercial sector. 1 we're dealing more with the monitoring and energy management or supermarket chain, interesting project, and as well 1 project on renewables. So you see that we have different kind of technologies as well, different kind of clients in public sector, in commercial sector, and in residential sector, which was good for us, that we could that we had a chance to work with the different type of clients. In total, investment trigger was 33 million euros, and annual primary energy savings 33 gigawatt hours per year, and annual CO2 emission savings 9,000 tons annually. So we were happy actually with the result, that we fulfill our initial targets, and as well that we got a different variety of the pilot projects. If we look on the just the main maybe outcomes on feedbacks received, then I was already mentioning that we were focusing on the 5 main questions about the importance of criteria, about possibilities actually to assess and provide evidence of certain criteria, about the time and resources needed for the evaluation, and what kind of criteria were used, or what kind of criteria in the client's or ESCO mind should be maybe removed, or maybe what could what should be or could be added in the future, or in particular country and in particular sector. So we were, as I was explaining about our methodology, we were using the questionnaire to the clients, to the ESCO companies, and to the facilitators, and we're asking them to actually to rate the quality criteria and to rate and evaluate the quality criteria. I picked just a few of the answers, and you'll have a more detailed description in the pilot project application reports, but here I try to summarize all the answers, all average answers from the ESCO companies, clients, and facilitators from all the 11 European countries. If we look on the question on the how specific are criteria, and we were asked our respondents to rate the criteria from not specific to very specific, and just to see whether the description is whether actually it's possible to understand the description, and whether actually clients and ESCO companies could as well assess the criteria. So maybe the one of the general conclusions which we could make is that quality criteria or quality criteria 8 on information of motivation of users was rated as not as specific. And actually, in general, if we jump to the main conclusions, then on quality criteria 8 and quality criteria as well 7 on information motivation of users and comfort, there was most of the discussions were about these two areas, as we see that probably till now even ESCO companies and clients are acknowledging that those are very important criteria and questions. It's not usually addressed in the EPC contracts or in procurement. And as well, in this case, the quality criteria 8, information and motivation of users, were rated as not specific. There was as very specific. There was rated criteria on saving guarantee, on the adequate analysis, on the verification of energy savings. Those are more specific and probably more used and understood already, and the clients and ESCO companies were more familiar with those criteria. If we look on the question how easy is to find the evidence, or how easy actually is to document or to refer to the very certain point in the EPC contract or in the tender, then as easy or criteria for which the evidence was more easy to find and to show was as well quality criteria 1, adequate analysis, and saving guarantee, which as well in my mind it was because of experience of the clients and ESCO companies. And as harder or not easy to actually provide evidence as well was on quality criteria 8 on information and motivation of users, and as well on the comfort quality criteria 7. how time-consuming is to evaluate criteria. Here, the most time-consuming was considered saving guarantee, even it was, as we saw from the previous answers, it was quite well understood and rated as very specific. Of course, the time and resources actually needed to evaluate the savings or was rated as time-consuming. And what was surprising as well, the quality criteria information motivation to users was rated as time-consuming. If we try to summarize and if we try to draw some general conclusions, which is of course not easy task to do, as the pilot projects are different, and in pilot project population reports you can read more about the specific pilot projects and countries. I could say that the general conclusion is that actually clients and ESCO companies were willing in general to use the quality criteria, and they found them relevant. As most specific and most important, the quality criteria on saving guarantee and verification of energy savings were usually mentioned regardless of the country or pilot project. And from the other side, as already mentioning, that quality criteria 8 on information and motivation of users and quality criteria 7 were usually mentioned as less specific, and in many cases even those quality criteria were not applied, even considered important. Of course, it's as well the fact that the projects itself were different, and for example, projects focusing on lighting usually we're not using quality criteria, or we're not describing quality criteria on comfort, even they were considering this very important, but it was not really described in the, or it was not assessed and describe how to do it in the EPC contracts or in procurement documentation. It was as well, respondents find it difficult to find evidence for these two criteria or those areas of criteria. And it's my personal conclusion that it seems that those two areas are at this moment, there's not too much experience how to address those questions. Even almost all ESCO companies and clients were agreeing that it's important. We as well received several suggestions what could be added or what could be changed, but it's hard actually to generalize, as this was quite specific suggestions, more related to the specific project and country, as there is some legislation differences between countries. For example, in Bulgaria, ESCO companies are not providing or not doing energy audit and not actually doing this initial analysis of the energy efficiency potential. So this was not relevant, and so on. So there, of course, is some differences as well from country to country and from specific market. to other market. There was some questions about quality criteria that there could be maybe too technical for the clients. If the clients are asked to evaluate or apply criteria themselves, and then it's therefore the labeling system or ESCO register definitely should be established. It was a comment from the Greece, for example. Yes, this was shortly from my side. I hope that you got the feeling what kind of projects we got, and what kind of answers and feedback we received. Actually, at this point, I will really encourage you to ask the questions and about the specific pilot projects, about the specific market or type of technologies or feedback received, and we have a chance now, this unique opportunity actually, to ask our project partners, our experts, which we're dealing with these energy efficiency projects on a daily basis. Here you see the list of the countries and a list of the pilot projects, so feel free and ask the questions. We already receiving first questions. I will maybe start to address a few of them. Maybe first question still to Clemens on the tools. There is a very interesting question, but a difficult one, but maybe Clemens, you can try to answer. There is question about the quality criteria and Eurostat. So I will read the question. Regarding EPC, the Eurostat guidance note on EPC is equally a lot about the quality of EPC projects. Are there any overlap synergies with the QualitEE criteria, and if yes, which one? Maybe you can try to answer this question.
Yes, I mean, the answer is simple in that way that we didn't assess this yet. But the question is very relevant, and I think also interesting, because of course the Eurostat note is important for all energy efficiency service projects in the public sector. And here I just can promise that we will make this assessment about overlaps and interlinkages in this context now during the final phase of the project. I think it's an important issue which we somehow forgot so far. The results will then be, of course, visible on the website in our final report. I personally think that the interlinkage is mostly related to our financial criteria, not so much to the technical criteria. But as I said, we need to make this closer assessment still. Thank you for the question in any case.
Thank you. There is as well a question on the quality criteria 7. How does this apply outside of office buildings? And it's similar discussion which already tried to discuss about.
Perhaps I can just add that, of course, comfort requirements are always connected to the kind of facility that is addressed in an energy efficiency service project. I would say the criteria we have included in the list is related to non-residential buildings. Of course, not so much, for example, to industrial buildings or similar buildings, but I think it's not only limited to office buildings, but you could also use them for shops, for hospitals, other kinds of, for public buildings, different kinds for schools. I think, but of course, if a client wants to include other comfort requirements, this is possible, and of course there is a clear invitation to adapt the list to specific framework of a facility.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for this answer. I see actually that we are running out of time. We pick a few of the questions. If there will be more, we will follow up and we'll answer on those. But as time is up, so I really like to thank you, all of you, all speakers, and of course all participants. I hope you find it interesting, and I hope that you will have a chance to look as well on our reports, where you can find more information. As well, presentations and recordings will be available on our webpage, so please take a look, or as well, please share them with your colleagues and your partners. And of course, please remember about the session tomorrow as well at the same time. And we will be discussing the energy efficiency services and labeling schemes, or how could we actually try to standardize the quality assurance schemes and the experiences from different countries. Thank you very much one more time, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you.